And welcome to today's webinar, Escape the Classroom with Google Expeditions. My name is Mary Carnahan, and I am the e-learning resource specialist with the Department of Education. And I get to produce all of these e-learning lab webinars and host most of them. So I get to hear from all of these excellent presenters that share in our webinar series, and today is no different. And I'm excited to get on with our topic and hear from our presenters, which we will do in just a few minutes. But first, I want to share some housekeeping items. So I have muted everybody when they joined the meeting today. Please keep yourself muted. That will reduce the amount of background noise that comes about throughout the webinar. As quiet as we think it is, inevitably a phone will ring or someone will walk in the door. So we will keep the lines muted. If I see any that get unmuted and catch it before you do, then I will mute you just to prevent the background noise. Because we have the lines muted, we still want you to be able to share questions that you may have for our presenters or for other participants in the webinar, and also to share your own ideas around this topic. So we have the chat box open for you, and hopefully you all see that. Our webinar system has changed since I did the last webinar, and I am still learning about it. So there may be a little chat icon at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a thought bubble. If that's there, click on it, and then hopefully you will have a chat box on the side of your screen. There also should be a little participant list icon. If you want to see who else is on the call today, you can see that there. But please, throughout the hour that we are together today, use that chat box, like I said, not only to ask questions, but to share ideas. The room, you know, the smartest person in the room is the room, so please use the room. We've got great presenters on the call, and they're going to have some awesome ideas to share, but you never know what other people who are here have done and who may have something to share. So definitely use each other. And if you want to share Twitter handles or other ways to connect to each other, feel free to do that through the chat also. Yeah, and like I said, keep muted. If you can hear me, you've connected to the audio successfully, so yay. I see lots of people who are listening on their computers. That is an addition with our new system, so we're very excited about that. When you do make comments in the chat box, make sure that everyone is set in that to drop-down box. It might default to me or to the presenter, which in a few minutes will change to Robbie. You may have to change that when I set the new presenter. So just make sure that you set it to everyone so that everybody on the call can see your comments and your questions. Also, I am recording the webinar today, so if for some reason you have to leave early or you want to review to see something you've missed or you want to share it with a coworker, I am recording and I will post that. Typically, I have it done within a week, like by the middle of the following week, so the middle of next week. I'll put that on our YouTube channel, which we link to from our e-learning lab page. So I'll share that link in just a few minutes so that you have it. Also, we award PGP points for the webinar, so I will send those PGP certificates out likely tomorrow. So you will have those, and you will get your 1 PGP point for the webinar. So that will be coming. So the e-learning lab is a part of our professional development series and opportunities that we have. We have one more webinar scheduled this month. We're going to have the computer science specialist from the department is going to be hosting our next webinar on September 18th, and he's going to be having a few classroom teachers in to talk about utilizing or teaching those computer science standards in the K-8 classroom, and not just in a technology or computer class, but also across the subject areas, because that's a really important thing that we're trying to get people to understand, is that those computer science standards don't just or shouldn't just be taught in the computer classes. So we're really excited about that. And then just watch our website and Twitter, and we're going to be scheduling more webinars throughout the fall. We are excited to have Twitter as an option to stay connected to one another. Be sure you're using the INELearn hashtag daily to connect to each other, and we have INELearn Twitter chats every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. This week, the topic is building a digital citizenship team, and that will be leading up to Digital Citizenship Week, which I'll talk about in just a moment. We are getting ready to start our fall e-learning book club. We're going to be reading Instant Relevance by Dennis Sheeran. That will start on September 17th, and that will also be a way to not only connect with other educators, mostly in the state of Indiana, but sometimes we have people connect from outside, but also to earn some PGP points. And also, I am hoping that we'll get Dennis in on the conversations, too. He was a keynote at one of our Summer of E-Learning conferences this summer, and we've exchanged some tweets, and he's very excited that we've selected his book, so it would not surprise me if he joins in our conversation. So visit the E-Learning Book Club blog. That URL is on the screen now. Unfortunately, you can't click on it, but I'll share the URL here in just a few minutes and get more information. You can get registered now, and we'll start in 2 weeks from yesterday. And next week is Indiana Digital Citizenship Week. We are excited to shine the spotlight on the importance of teaching digital citizenship next week, but year-round. So check out the resources that we have available on our website. And the Twitter chats this week, as I already mentioned, and next week will be around digital citizenship. So that's a good way to learn a little bit more about that topic. And now I am excited to turn this presentation over to Kyle and Robbie and Kyle, and they are going to share some really cool things that they have done together. They are in 3 different districts, but they have partnered together to do some really cool stuff, and they are going to tell us about that today. And I'm going to let them, they can introduce themselves much better than I can, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I'm going to make Robbie the presenter. Like I said, when I do that, you may have to make some changes in your chat options down at the bottom, but we will turn it over to you guys.
Great. Well, this is Kyle Beimfor. I'm from Zionsville Community Schools.
And excuse me, this is Kyle Klein, or Kyle number 2, and I'm the Math Curriculum and Technology Integration Specialist from Delphi. Is Robbie here? Oh, did we lose Robbie?
I think Robbie's muted. Robbie,
I'm going to Robbie's muted.
I'm going to unmute you, Robbie. We should be able to hear you now, Robbie.
All right. I was just using the mute on my phone rather than there. You can hear me, though?
Yes, we can. You were muted in the system, but you're good now. We hear you.
All right, fantastic. I was wondering what was going on. Anyway, I'm Robbie Grimes from the e-learning specialist for Wayne Township Schools. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit about Google Expeditions today and how that kind of has played a part in our 3 roles over the last couple of months. So I think, first of all, we're going to move on to the jump right in and talk about the what.
Okay, so those of you that are not real familiar with Google Expeditions came out in 2015, and it was obviously produced by Google, but it is a program where you can run an app through a separate device. It goes through a router, and you can connect other devices to the same router. And basically, you have a guide. So I don't know, Robbie, if you want to click on the pictures we can pull up here. With this, you'll have one person as a guide, and everybody else will be a tourist, basically. And so the teacher will see, basically on the top left screen, they will be able to, or sorry, on the top right, they'll be able to choose from a long list of different places to take their tourists all around the globe. And these range anywhere from, like I have Machu Picchu here. That's just my favorite place to go every year. It's just amazing, and it's fun to watch the kids. I had one kid one time that had the goggles on and said, if I take a step on this ledge, will I actually fall? And so that always gives me a great chuckle, because that's just how life like it seems sometimes. So you'll choose, you can search for a scene or a different expedition. You can take your students. When you look to the left, I have a picture from Notre Dame in Paris, and this is what the teacher or the guide will see. So in this case, we have some nice information on the right. We have special points. So you can kind of see the top one is highlighted, which means it is fixating on this picture that is actually pulled out of the 360 image of this gargoyle. And there's some information for the teacher that they can share with the students or with the tourists. And then basically on the bottom, this is an image of what it looks like from the student's perspective when they're looking through a device and the cardboard. This way you have your two screens, and inside the cardboard, it makes it look 3D. So if you're not real familiar, that's kind of a little bit of what it looks like or what it sounds like, what it may look like from the teacher side and the student side. So I think we're ready for the next part.
All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the how. So if you've ever experienced Google Expeditions, it's very awesome. And just as Kyle Klein talked about, is I always tell teachers it's one of the few times where you're going to teach a lesson where you're literally going to have oohs and ahs for everything that you have to say and show all your students. But what always comes down to is the teacher saying, okay, so but what does this look like in my classroom? How do I roll this out with my students? And Kyle kind of touched on some of the things I was going to talk about, but you obviously need to have a teacher device to lead these expeditions. And at Zionsville, we have an Android tablet that we use. We have used an iPod or an iPad as well. And then you're going to need student devices for each of the headsets. We have iPod touches. I know many other schools use cell phones or similar sized mobile devices. And you need to make sure that you have the Google Expedition app downloaded on each of those devices. They're free both in iOS and Android. And then obviously you need to have a VR headset. We started with just using the Google Cardboard, but we quickly realized this was not a long-term solution for us because after about 2 class periods, the oil from the kids' foreheads was showing up on all those cardboards, and you can't really clean cardboard. So at our district, we ended up investing in Mattel ViewMaster VR headsets. I think that's what Robbie has at Wayne Township as well. And those have worked really well for us because they're plastic and can be cleaned. So we make sure that we clean those after every use as well. And then you need to have some kind of a router or some way to connect all the devices together. We originally started using our school's Wi-Fi network and actually had more trouble with that. So we just pulled in an old router that we keep with our kit, and that does connect to the internet, but it allows the teacher and the student devices to connect to one another. And that has worked great for us. Robbie, what do you have going on at your district?
Well, we are. I was going to move on to the why part, as far as why I really kind of had this passion for doing Google Expeditions. I was actually speaking with a student of ours, and as we were working through some of the things with literacy, we were working through a time for kids, and there was a giraffe on as one of the pictures. And as we were going through the material, I asked the boy that I was working with if he had ever seen the tongue of a giraffe, and that it's blue and it's pigmented like that because of the sun, and the giraffe trying to grab leaves and branches from tall trees. And he said no, he hadn't ever seen that. And I said, well, have you ever seen a giraffe? And he said, no. And I said, well, have you ever been to a zoo? And he said, no, I haven't. And here at Wayne Township, we are about 3 to 5 miles from one of the most fantastic zoos in the United States, if not the whole planet. It is amazing, and many of our students have never been to the zoo. And so as I got to thinking through how our students are living their day and what they're doing, many of them get up in the morning, go to school, go back home, and they really don't veer much off of that path throughout their life. Sometimes they'll go to a family member's house, but they don't really get to go out other places. And so then as I was thinking about the experiences that they have compared to the experiences of other students in the state or across the globe who maybe have an opportunity to visit places like what they're able to see in these using Google Expeditions, it occurred to me that we are testing students across the board and expecting that they come to the table with some similar life experiences. And maybe there is a math question, let's say, that asks the student on a standardized test about, how tall is Abraham Lincoln's chin on Mount Rushmore. And I want you to kind of figure out how tall this is based upon how many flagpoles it takes. And the flagpole, let's say, is 10 feet tall, and it takes however many 4 or 5 flagpoles to reach from the chin to the top of Abraham Lincoln's head. And while a kid might be able to kind of imagine what that might look like, if they don't even have a perspective as to what Mount Rushmore is like, how are they ever going to solve some of the problems we're asking them to solve on these standardized tests? So then I compared our students, this particular student specifically, to students who possibly have been to those locations in more affluent school districts, more affluent families, and really the opportunities are so vastly different, yet we're asking questions on standardized tests that are exactly the same, expecting students can just use that information and learn from it and continue and do well on that assessment. So I looked at Google Expeditions as an opportunity to very easily level the playing field somewhat. It certainly doesn't make it so that kid actually gets to visit that location. However, it's very close. As a matter of fact, when I'm working even with middle school and high school students, they'll be using the goggles, and occasionally they will look down and they'll say, "I can't see my feet. I can't see my feet." And some of them are legitimately a little nervous at the fact that they look down and they can't see themselves standing there because they actually think they are standing there in those locations. So that's something about the why that I really looked into this and really wanted to kind of step into Google Expeditions as an option for our students here at Wayne Township. So let's go back to Kyle.
All right. So just one of the things we thought we'd just kind of share what it looks like in each of our districts. At Zionsville, like I said, when we started delving into VR, we had Google actually come and demonstrate Google Expeditions with some of our teachers, students at some of our buildings a couple of years ago. And we invested in some Google Cardboards, and we really didn't have any devices to go with inside the cardboards. And so what we kind of did was focus at our middle schools and high schools where a lot of those kids had their own smartphones and allowed them to download the Google Expedition app and kind of did it that way. But we knew that was kind of a temporary thing, but it was a great way to kind of introduce it with some of our teachers and staff. And so a couple years ago, I wrote a grant for the Zionsville Education Foundation and was able to get it funded to get a set of 30 using these iPod Touches as well as the ViewMaster VR headsets and the Android tablet. And so we were able to do that to purchase that kit, and you can kind of see they're in 2 big red bins that I carry in my Trailblazer all over our district, it seems like. We had over 3/4 of our school year those headsets were being used every single day. So that was great for our Education Foundation. They felt that was a great investment, and now I'm about ready to go back and ask for some more after that. Kyle, too, do you want to share what you guys have going on at your district?
Sure. Ours kind of started out similarly in that when Expeditions first came out, I mean, it was such a new concept, and then like to try to build a kit or to try to buy a kit from scratch. I think originally Best Buy had kits for around $10,000, and that was for 30 devices, 30 cardboards, a router, a tablet, something, and gosh, I feel like there's something else there, but like a toting case. But so I was like, well, I'm probably not going to get that from the district. So what we started doing is I had a good buddy, Kurt Schleibaum, that had a bunch of cardboards, and he let me borrow those for a while. He's a pretty fantastic guy down from Seymour, and so we started at the high school and the middle school also, and students were using their own devices. So basically, what we started with was kind of like just a basic cardboard. I can't, where like the so it's made of. But if you look at the bottom left picture, my friend Bill Scheidler and I, we wrote an education foundation grant to get some actual plastic cardboard viewers, because what we found with the cardboard was they were tear easy because the Velcro would rip off after about 5 tries or something like that. We also had kind of the nasty little grease marks from the forehead and from the nose, and so that was a little gross. So we thought we could go with some plastic ones. So bottom left, we got about 34 of those that we shared between the high school, middle school, and elementary school. And then the other 3 photos are from the from the elementary school, was able to buy a grant. So they got these devices on the bottom right, which is their cardboards where the phone actually went into it, and then they had the phone, which is up on the top left, which is an Asus. So we have just one that we kind of share whenever Bill Scheidler is nice to me, unless we borrowed up in middle school. But that's kind of how we have it at Delphi currently.
And here at Wayne Township, I wrote an Education Foundation grant as well, and got this kit that's right here. We went through a company called RPM, and they got us this Gator case and put this kind of kit together for us through our request and kind of going through how we wanted it to be designed. So this was our first kit, and we've had our kit for almost 2 years now. This particular one. This one kit here is shared among 11 elementary buildings, and we have 2 other kits that were purchased by our school district, and one of them is shared at our 7th and 8th grade centers, as well as our Sanders School, which is an alternative school, and then also one of them, the third one, is shared between our 9th grade center and our high school, which is 10, 11, 12. And so those get an incredible amount of use, and I actually just did a survey of teachers who have used it so far. We've got several thousand kids who have gone through and used them, and the thing that that teachers ask the most at the very end of that survey, I said, what can we do to make this better? And the one comment that I got from almost everyone was, I need more access. I need to have this more in my classroom because the engagement was so incredibly high. It makes the learning real for the students, and they can directly tie what they've seen and what they've experienced back to the classroom and what I taught in the classroom. And so access really was the issue. And so I have a meeting with our school board at the end of September to kind of give them this experience and hopefully to solicit some more funding for several more of these kits. I've also talked to a couple of buildings about the possibility of combining with another building, like 2 elementary buildings or 3 elementary buildings getting together and sharing the cost of one kit, and then just those 3 elementary buildings or those 3 buildings in general can then share the kit among themselves. So beyond just this hardware setup and the fact that there are over 900 expeditions available, we also wanted to tell you about the collaboration that we had when we worked together the end of this past school year.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and share a little bit about that as well. So I actually had received a grant. We had such success with our VR kit that, and with you attend the HEC conference a year ago, the tool that was given out was a 360 camera. And so as I was talking with a lot of our teachers, they're like, there are tons of Google Expeditions, but specifically in fourth grade, our teachers said, you know what, there's not a lot of Indiana content in there. There was like one, I think, with one of the automotive plants that was in there, but that was about it. And one of the things that when I taught fourth grade is we used to take our students down to Cortland, Indiana to see the first state capitol and to go to Squire Boone Caverns, and just that's just not a possibility anymore with school budgets. And so one of the things our teacher said, well, can we create our own? And I said, actually, we can. And so Google has actually created this tour creator where you can go to this website, vr.google.com/tour creator. And you can actually start creating your own content in there. And so I talked with Kyle and Robbie and said, you know, what are some places we could do locally that that would be high interest for our teachers? And we kind of came up with a list and narrowed it down to both the Indiana Motor Speedway as well as the Indianapolis Zoo. And so the three of us got together and got some really cool tours of both of those locations. So here's on the left, the three of us at the Indianapolis Zoo, and then on the right there, us right there at the finish line of the Motor Speedway. But both places were very welcoming to let us go in there. We took both our 360 camera, where we were able to get some scenes and 360 scenes, and then also using just my my phone, using some still shots as well that we're able to put right into the tour creator program. And Robbie, do you want to get out of the slideshow and we kind of go in and kind of show them what that looks like real quickly? It's super easy, and most of the things with Google, it's a lot of drag and drop. And so it's something that one of our big pushes at Zionsville is putting the learning in the students' hands and letting the students create their own content. So this is something that ideally we want, like I'm planning working with our third grade teachers because they study local community. And so those students we're going to take them out in our community and let them take their own 360 shots and develop their own tours. And so here's an example of one from the zoo that we did. But if you just want to click on that, show them what it looks like. And so it brings you to, do you just want to go ahead, Robbie, and describe it since you're kind of navigating right there?
We took 360 images, and then we also took still imagery. And what you end up doing is you end up making these different scenes within this one trip. So within this particular trip, I have all of these different scenes down here at the bottom. And as I click on like the macaws, I can click on the macaws scene, and it will take you to this 360 image that we took while we were there. Here you can see Kyle, and myself standing here taking pictures and doing stuff like that. But you can also see this area here, and these little circles are all the points of interest. So those are all still images that when you click on them, they pull up these closer, more in-depth imagery that comes along. And then on the right-hand side, you can see how the content ends up getting added. So you can add some text that goes along with that particular picture as you go through. So when we go down over here to like the brown bear, this is the brown bear 360 image. And we have the two bears right here, and there are one of them playing games. Well, possibly. There we go. Here's one, and I talked about how they take how the zoo takes food, and they put the food kind of up here, even peanut butter, and smear it kind of up here on their enclosure, so that the bears won't just get food handed to them. They have to actually search it out and look for it. Also, it makes it more interesting for the attendees who are there at the zoo and the visitors at the zoo. So those types of things were shared with us while we were there with some of the handlers of the zoo. We also tried And let me see if I can go in here to the oceans exhibit. In the oceans exhibit, we tried to take the camera that we got at that conference and put it underwater. And we found that the Wi-Fi underwater isn't really that fantastic. So we weren't able to get a picture of some of the places that we really wanted to get. When you take a look at,
we did get a cool picture of the penguins though, and the penguin exhibit.
Yes, we did. We were able to kind of go behind the scenes. Let me go back over here. I
don't think it's in this one.
Maybe I didn't put it on this one yet.
That's
let me check and see. Yeah, the penguins one, they let us take the camera, or actually they took the camera and put it back inside the exhibit. I was working on this one just this past weekend, and I don't see it here. But they took the camera and put it inside the enclosure, and we were able to take a 360 picture of the penguins, kind of right up next to the camera and kind of looking into the lens of the camera. And I'm not really sure what's going on with this. There's one of the touch tank with the dogfish sharks. Well, this is a place where we tried to put it underwater and the Wi-Fi wouldn't work. We wanted to get an image of an underwater look at what these sharks looked like. So it's fairly easy to go through here. You just click Add Scene over here on the right-hand side, and when you do, it pulls this up. You click over here and go to Upload, and you can just drag a 360 image over here into this area. And once you do, you click Add Scene, and it takes you into an area just like this. And over here on the right-hand side, you can add points of interest. When you do, you really just simply click the Add Point of Interest, and you have this little eye that shows up. I can click and drag that wherever in the scene that I want to kind of get a closer-up shot. And then down here, I can add a description for it. You only have 300 characters, so you kind of have to be stingy on the words that you use. But then I can also add imagery, or I can also add narration if I want to. As far as I know, they are intending to add video as well, so you could have some video content that would go in here. But I will tell you that on the downside part of this creation piece, I have noticed that since it's not in the Google Expeditions environment, I have noticed some lag time when using it. And when you are having your students use this, when you move back and forth, it's kind of jerky. And then also you can see even here as I'm clicking on some of these things, it takes a second for them to pop up even here on my PC, much less on the device we're using. Plus, in our district, as we are using our devices, we don't let our students take the devices and go online. So if you want to use this poly.google.com, this tour creator tool, you are going to have your students be online and have access to the internet to be able to have them use this particular tool. Until Google allows you to take these tours that you're making with Tour Creator and actually submit them to Google Expeditions, and then they will take them and add them to the Expeditions library, in which case when that happens, you can use the closed environment where the content is actually downloaded to the teacher device, and you're using your like private network you might have set up within your classroom. We have ours set up the same way that Kyle and Kyle were talking about, whereas each of our kits has its own access point, and then it doesn't ever access the internet. It just takes the 30 devices, connects them to the access point. The teacher device connects to the access point, and that's how you push the content from the teacher device through the access point to the students. If you're using Tour Creator, you have a link that you would use similar to this, and I'll show you this particular slide right here. This is actually a link, the URL and a QR code that you can use to click on or visit to be able to get to this Indianapolis Zoo expedition. And it's really, I guess it's really not called an expedition, it's called a tour at this point since it's not in the Google Expeditions environment. I did talk with Google, got an email back from them just today, and was asking them about, okay, so if I create all of these, none of my students can use these at this point. And I'm putting all this work into making these, and none of our students can use them because we don't let our students have these devices that have internet access. Now, certainly we could go into the upper grades and let those students use their own devices, but then you do lose the ability for the teacher to guide the students through. It's more self-directed that way. You lose the ability for the teacher to be able to guide them through. But they said that when you are creating them in Tour Creator, that is going to be the tool that they're using to submit them to the Expeditions environment. So at that point, whenever that happens, and they said all she could give me was sometime soon. When I was looking at an update, it said fall, so I'm hoping it's sometime before, December 22nd, whenever winter starts. I'm hoping it's then. So that's kind of how the Google Tour Creator ends up working and how you work that out.
And when you publish these, you have the ability to publish them publicly. So like the one that Robbie has here is public, but you can also choose to publish them unlisted, so that it's going to give a URL that wouldn't be out there for the general public as well.
Yeah, right here. Right when you get finished creating, you can click publish, and you can say you want it public, or you can say you want it unlisted. And if it's unlisted, they can only get it through the URL. If it's public, I'm guessing you can then search for it somewhere. I'm not sure where you would search for it, though.
It's Google.
I'm pretty sure you can get that like at poly.google.com, I think is where it's at.
From their main website?
Yes, on their 360 tours.
Yeah. And if, Robbie, could you go out back to the main page? Because one of the things that they've added is a lot of templates. So if you're like, I don't even know where to start, you can click that templates, and it's got a plethora of different types of tours that have already been created. And when you click on it, it makes a copy of that tour and puts it into your tours, and then you can customize it yourself. So now he has that tour.
Yeah, you also get to pick this this first slide that's right here that kind of showcases what this is all about. But then this is, they really, I'm not really sure about the whole template thing, other than they all kind of look exactly alike. Because it's basically you get the 360 image, and then you can add different points of interest here.
I will tell you that. I'm going to say, I think that one has narration if you want to click on it so you can hear what it sounds
Not sure if the audio will
go through
or not. Yeah.
That's just where you add it. I think you have to actually view it in order to hear the audio.
Sure. Oh, okay.
I will tell you that the quality of the imagery really matters. If you are in a low light situation, like in that oceans one that I did, that particular one was relatively low light, and the image is really kind of grainy. And you really kind of, I don't want to say you need to be a photographer, but you really need to understand how light works and how cameras will make things not so great if you don't have a lot of light available to you as you're doing it. So like you can see kind of over here, these trees are kind of blurry. I don't know what that's, I don't know why that is, other than it's probably that this camera was pointed toward the elephants, and maybe that's kind of on the edge where it was seeming to piecing together the two images from that camera we were using. It's a Ricoh Theta camera, so it takes two images with fisheye lenses, and it pieces them together at the edges, so the edges are going to be a little more blurry than maybe the main image is going to be right here.
I did type in poly.google.com, and I put it over in the chat also. If you actually go there and if you search up at the top, search for Indianapolis Zoo, your published tour will show up there. So I highly recommend anybody to go check that out at some point.
Very cool. So there are several out there for Indiana that might be helpful. I know Kyle worked on several this past summer, and they specifically fit the curriculum. This Motor Speedway one is one. I've talked to the airport authority of possibly being able to do one at the airport, as well as FedEx, as well as potentially the Ray's recycling and trash service, to see what happens with all of our trash. Where does it go? What happens to it? And what do we do with it?
to move on to augmented reality, or do we want to take some time for any questions that you may have about virtual reality with Google Expeditions and what this would look like at your school district? I know for at Zionsville, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a niche kind of fun thing to do in class. So hey, it's Friday, let's go get the VR headsets and let them explore. And we really wanted to be intentional about using this tool to extend the learning or build background knowledge. And so in order for teachers to check out our VR kit, they have to go through a self-guided virtual reality Canvas course. It just takes them about an hour, hour and a half. Matter of fact, I think we may have a couple teachers here today that are going to use this webinar as their PD for that. And then encouraging them to use the lesson plan template that Google provides in there as well, so that it is very intentional and they're seeing it's not just, hey, where do we want to go to? Let's go to the moon. But really, okay, how does this enhance the learning going on in the classroom, as Robbie was talking about earlier?
And here at Wayne, I'm working directly hand in hand with our academic coaches as well, and we've created a document for each of the quarters, especially specifically our elementary curriculum, but each of the quarters of our year, we have kind of dovetailed and made a chart that has all of their curriculum listed per subject area and per grade level, but then also we've listed some of the Google Expeditions that go along with those so that teachers don't have to necessarily go out and search all over the place for what they would want to possibly do with Google Expeditions. There's actually a connection between those. I also will show you, hang on a second, as soon as this goes away, I'll show you, oh, I can't get to my browser. There we go. I will show you, there is a Google Spreadsheet that has a list of all of the Google Expeditions in it. What I recommend teachers do is, and I'll take this link and put it in the chat as well, I recommend that our teachers go to this particular spreadsheet, and I think it's a little odd because Google, in all of its wisdom, and if nothing else, Google is a search company, and they've got this ability to create all kinds of stuff, and they have the list just in a Google Expedition, or I mean in a Google Spreadsheet, which isn't incredibly user-friendly, just because you're looking at 900 lines of data, and you would think that there would be some way to put a word in here. But I guess it is relatively easy in that if you want to look up something, if you're in the spreadsheet, if you do Control F on your keyboard and just do something with a title like China, 2 of 44, these right here are 2 of the 44 times that the word China turns up on this spreadsheet. So then you can scroll through, and so this is China's Maritime Silk Road. So the Silk Road has a specific expedition that goes along with it. If you scroll through here, this is all the Silk Road, so it goes down to this next one. This one right here is, looks like major Discover Chinese Dynasties. So here's the Great Wall and the Forbidden City and all of those. So you can go through here, but what I have found is sometimes if you do a search on the actual app, you will find some of them, but you don't necessarily see all of this content that comes with it as a description of this particular expedition. So it might be easier to search this way, so you see the text and the content first, and then go into the actual app itself on iOS or Android and look for this particular title, Discover Chinese Dynasties, right down here, and be able to get that title, pull it up, and do a little preview of it. We require that all of our teachers, like Kyle was saying, they require their teachers to go through like a PD thing, an online PD. We require all of our teachers to come to about a half-hour, 45-minute meeting, staff meeting, where at each building when it's introduced, and then you have to have gone through that meeting before you can actually take an expedition, and then I will work with them curricularly to make this particular lesson that they want to teach much more engaging and enriching their learning by using a particular Google Expedition.
I just added over in the chat, there's a pretty cool website called TES.com, and they actually have lesson plans that you can search that are based around the Google Expeditions. And so there's a pretty cool one, like one of my favorite ones is going to the Congo. And so what they do is students get a look at the gorillas and different parts of like the rainforest, and then they have to actually have like a writing assignment where they send a postcard back to their parents or back to a loved one or a friend. And so it turns out to be kind of a writing assignment along with the expedition. So I recommend anybody that's interested, go check that out as well. So it's it's a pretty cool website also. I find it easier than the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I actually used one of these at a presentation I was doing at FETC in Florida. I used their one on the moon, and we took the expedition. I took all the attendees basically on a lesson. I did a lesson with them, how I would run a lesson in a classroom with figuring out their weight on the moon and all of that, and then they were able to experience what the moon was like through the expedition as well.
Yeah, very cool.
Learning any questions, fellows? You want to move on to this augmented reality area?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't see too many questions. So last year, what was it? Last spring, was it May, where the Google started adding in this new augmented reality. So the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality. With virtual reality, you use the cardboards, the goggles, and you are actually transport yourself into a different scene. But with augmented reality, you actually take something and put it into your world. So there's a difference in between how it looks, and also with the augmented reality, you're not necessarily looking through the goggles. You're looking here down at the bottom. You'll see Robbie has a good picture of when they had the AR expeditions travel to some of their elementary schools, and kids were holding a device, like a smartphone, on the end of a selfie stick. So, and this one's kind of hard to see, but it looks like he's looking at an elephant, and his buddy's petting the elephant, I think it is. So that's pretty cool. There's also, here on the left, I have there's a catapult, or no, sorry, that's an old cannon, not a catapult. There's a cannon. There's also some about like the skeletal system, which is pretty neat. My son ran away when I was trying to screenshot this picture, but he was in the back, so it looked like his skeleton was overlaying onto him. There's some neat ones with biology about, in this case, it's like an ionic bond, but they have mitosis, and it's just cool because with the AR, you can actually kind of step into the cell, and you step into the cell, and you look around at the different pieces, and you look around at the different stages of mitosis. So I think this might have gotten more oohs and ahs when I witnessed it down at Robbie's, one of his elementary schools, than some of the virtual reality did, because there's a giant bee that showed up, and there's some kids that started to run out of the room. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool. That was pretty awesome.
I also wanted to
add about the AR.
Yeah, I wanted to also add that when you download the Expeditions app, AR and VR are included in that app, but you have to your phone or device that you use has to be newer-ish. Otherwise, the AR part won't work. You have to have, it's called Google. I forget what the app is. There's an additional thing that you have. I forget. It's not Google View, like Code or something like that. Before the AR piece will work, and it has to do with your camera and the chipset in the device that you have. All three of the kits that we have are one version too old, so none of our kits can do augmented reality. But when you're looking at the app itself and searching through on the app for the various trips that you can take, I'll show you here. Come on. When you are looking here, there is, at the bottom now, there's an AR Expeditions tab. And when you click the AR Expeditions tab, that's the augmented reality piece. And the VR Expeditions is the the virtual reality piece. So there are many more virtual reality pieces than there are AR. And I know that there are more cameras coming out that will do things, but typically the AR versions are computer generated and not necessarily photographs or live 3D photographs, or not live, but captured photographs of things. but as you can tell the difference if you look in the top right-hand corner, and I should have taken a picture and put it up here in the Google slide deck that we're doing. But when you take a look at the app itself and you're looking at the various expeditions, in the top right-hand corner, there's either something that looks like the Google cardboard icon, or it looks like a little square that has like lines coming out from the sides of it. And that square with lines coming out from the sides of it are all of the AR offerings that Google offers in that. But please also think about this. We've also stepped into the world of MergeCube. And if you aren't familiar with what a MergeCube is, just I would say Google it. And to find out what it is, a MergeCube is a tool that it's actually a foam block that has basically QR codes on the 6 sides of the cube, and you can use their MergeCube apps on your devices to hold like a human heart in your hand and rotate it around and see it beating and go inside of it and look at the valves and all of those types of things. So it's a little bit different than the Google augmented reality piece for expeditions that's available here in this self-contained app. But also I used one with a class where they were able to look at the terracotta warriors. Oh, there's one. Fantastic. Thank you for putting that up there. So this slide right here shows the differences in the 2 types. So up here on the top right of this image, you can see that the Google goggles or the Google cardboard icon is up here. And then down here, DaVinci's Inventions. This one right here is what the AR augmented reality looks like, and they are absolutely fantastic. And Kyle was right. When you're standing in the gymnasium and you can see a life-size elephant standing in the gymnasium, it absolutely throws people for a loop. It's amazing. This particular picture is what was happening there at this one, and I'll make that bigger and present it so you can see this. But this kid, they were. I was taking a picture of them, kind of petting this elephant in the augmented reality tool. So it was the kids absolutely were amazed, and you can zoom in and see texture on this elephant. Its ears are flapping, and you can go and see texture on the skin of the elephant. It's really amazing what they've done and what technology is able to do at this point.
And if you look there, Robbie, and keep that slide there, and that little discover. On the left side, you can they've tagged all the AR augmented reality ones with AR, so you can click that AR button on the tag on the left, and it'll pull up all the AR scenes that they have available to them as well. I don't think did we share about how you use it? So with the QR codes, we already talked about.
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
So basically, the big difference. So Robbie said, we have the headsets for virtual reality. And so with what this does with the app, in the top left corner where those 3 lines are, you can actually print out these QR code sheets. And you just basically put those sheets around the room, whether it be on the floor of the gymnasium or on tables scattered around the room. And then when the students point their devices to that QR code, it pulls up those images. So in that case, the elephant shows up on the floor above that QR code. And it does, while there's many different colors, they give you many different colored QR codes to print off, they all show the exact same thing because it's teacher-led, just like the virtual reality ones are as well. So a lot of times you'll have kids, I'm going to go scan that QR code. They're all identical. And so it doesn't really matter which one they're at.
Yeah, it's very cool that it's very teacher-directed. So all the kids will be pointing their devices at the code on the floor, and the same object the object is the same on all of the devices that all 30 students or however many students you have looking at them are looking at on their devices. And actually, if you look at this phone that's right here, the bars that are on here are actually a function of my camera and the refresh speed of that Asus phone. So the bars really aren't usually there. It looks like they're in kind of like a cage or something like that, but the bars aren't usually there. It just was my camera was taking pictures, and that's what it did with that particular image. This I must not be logged into the right account, so you can't see a video of this. I'm logged into my Wayne account, but that's kind of weird. Anyway, you can see a tornado rotating on this image, and you can see differences between what the different categories of tornadoes are, which is very, very interesting to see what kind of damage happens in each of them and what the winds look like. That as well.
If you refresh it, you might be able to see it if you refresh it, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see. See if it'll play now.
Yeah.
Loading.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think this is like this is what an F3 looks like. So it's pretty cool because you can walk around it and you can see the different damage. The other cool thing, like with AR, is you can pinch to zoom or spread your fingers out to make it bigger. So I think here shortly it's going to switch from an F3, so you'll see the damage in the houses, to an F5. And so it's kind of crazy. I showed a couple kids this, like, whoa, and the teachers that I showed, like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a cool visual. So here's what an F5 looks like. Notice there's no building standing here at all. So I thought that
I think it's interesting
cool.
that the tornado is going all the way through the
ground,
the landscape.
Yep. Yeah, the damage is never ending.
Right. Okay, well, hopefully we have given you lots of information to take, and you're more than welcome to contact any of the three of us and ask questions. We'll leave about 5 minutes right now where we can ask some questions and then turn it all over back to Mary.
Well, I haven't seen any questions. Does anybody have any questions as we end with our presentation? I think that you guys shared some awesome information and everybody's just digesting and hopefully thinking about how they can use this at their schools and in their classrooms. Well, make sure as you're thinking about if you have a question, make sure you jot down the Twitter handles of all these guys. Like they said, they're more than happy to connect. Has anyone ever gotten motion sickness?
We actually have had some students, and so I guess that was one of the things I was going to share is just we talked with our teachers about just some good teaching strategies with them, and one of the things we require all our students to stay seated when they're using the VR headsets. One, because they all want to put their hands out and touch everything that's out there, and they can't, and so they end up touching each other. And then also, we'll have some kids that they do feel a little motion sick. One of the nice things with the Google Expeditions is you can actually go between VR headset mode and just full screen mode. And so there'll be times where if those kids are starting to feel sick, they take the headset off and I pull the device out, put it in full screen, and they can still look around, but it's not immersive like through VR is.
I will add that we require our students to sit down too, because they will start walking around and they have fallen before and gotten hurt. With the VR part, with the AR part, you can't stay seated. You don't have goggles on, so you can see everything. So with the VR part, we always have our students sit down. Well, I wanted to also let you all know that there is some really good PD coming up in the next couple of months at the ICE conference and the HEC conference. And I would highly recommend that you look at both of those. I don't have the ICE conference URL, but here is the HEC conference URL. And the HEC conference, I can't tell you what tool that we're going to be giving away, and we give away an educational tool every year. But I can tell you that it might be related to what we talked about today. That's really all I can say about it. Registration will open up on Monday as well, and the announcement will be made as far as what tool we're giving away. But the 360 cameras that we gave away in last year are certainly things that can be used in this as well.
I saw someone posted in there about testing AR expeditions around the state. That was something back in the spring, and that they have concluded that at this time.
Yeah, they have. They stopped that right when they announced Tour Creator, and when they allowed Tour Creator to be available to everyone, they stopped doing that. The guy was here in Indiana and for a little while, and did several here at Wayne Township and across the state. And then we hired him actually here at Wayne Township. He's a business teacher at Wayne Township now.
Awesome.
The kid who was the kid guy who was doing it.
He's a kid. He's very young.
Yes, he was. So yeah, I would definitely check out the HEC conference and the ICE conference. ICE is going to be in October, the first week or so of October, and then the HEC conference is the first week or so of November. So definitely check out those two conferences coming up.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for all of this fabulous information. Hopefully we'll be hearing lots more about people using AR and VR and doing Google Expeditions and creating tours and all sorts of cool stuff. And this is an awesome way to get our kids out of the classroom because it's so hard these days. So this is a fabulous opportunity to give our kids experiences that we aren't necessarily able to on a bus outside of the building. So thanks to Kyle and Robbie and Kyle, and thanks to everybody who joined us today. Again, connect with us through Twitter and through the Twitter chats, and I will be posting this webinar on our YouTube channel next week. So if you know of a friend who would be interested in this, please share that information. So everyone have a great evening. Thanks a lot.